What's up, YouTube? Dusty in the shop today. Let's see what we can build today. So I'm going to roll the footage. Let's rock.
Floating shelves. Right here I'm doing the layout. It's a rough layout, getting rough measurements. I'm going to make everything about a ½ inch oversized. Try to pick the good faces with the bad faces for the tops and bottoms and the sides. Pretty much just normal layout. And the floating shells, nothing really too fancy about these. They're going to be hollow on the inside, so it's not that big of a deal. And once I get all my layout lines, I will take it over to the chop saw. Now over to the miter saw. I'm going to square up one edge. This is on the rough edge. Got a cross cut blade on there. I think it's a 62th, maybe higher count. A few Diablo. So I'm going to square up this one edge. And I have a stop block down there on the end that is roughly around 40 inches from my blade. I would just slide it down there. Get it firmly against it and chop out the other end. So that way I have two square edges that are referenced off the fence. And then I'll repeat this process over and over again until I get everything roughed out and square. So since I had that one piece already cut, I put an X there, so that way I know it's square. I usually put X's all over my boards, let them know where I reference the fence and reference my square edges. Just good practice in my opinion.
Got my boards ripped down to 40 inches long. This is 7 1/4 wide. Make sure you save your offcut because this was an 8-foot board. This offcut I'm going to rip because I know I want my shelves to be 2 inches thick. So I'm going to rip this on a table saw before I tilt my table saw to 45 degrees. I want to rip these while my saw is still at 90 degrees. Go ahead and rip these, that way it's less setups on a table saw. I'm going to rip 2 of these at 2 inches down, and then I'll come back and put my 45s on them, and that way it'll be 2 inches wide and stuff. So I'm going to go set my table saw up and then we'll roll.
So here I'm taking it to my table saw. I got my fence set up where it's 2 inches away from the blade because I want my sides width, front width, and everything to be 2 inches to mimic a 2-inch thick like beam board, so it gives you the appearance of a 2 inches thick. So I just use the ripper right here, rip it safely to the table saw. I got my rip blade set up to appropriate height and everything. Easy peasy. So now I'm doing my 40-inch long boards. This will be the very front edge of the appearance to mimic the 2-inch thickness on the floating shells, because like I mentioned before, they'll be hollow in the back. So I did not change my setup, so that way you don't have to do minimum setups here. So just push these through. The good thing is you get 2 good rips. Really, you can probably get 3 out of these if you want to build multiple shelves, because this is the offcuts of the other board from an 8-foot long board.
So now it's time to determine which ones you want the backside and the face, the ones that'll be showing, like the top, the bottoms, stuff like that. So that way you can determine your 45s. If you're going to do a 45-degree joint like I am on the bookshelves. So I'm going to mark these out the way I want them, the way I want it to lay out. And you will only be doing a 45 on one of these front faces and a 45 on the sides. So I'm going to lay these out the way I want them. This is what I want for the bottom. Doesn't look the greatest. So this right here, I want to be the top. These X's that I put right here are the ones I reference my face against, or the sides against for my miter saw. So put another X. And these are still rough length, so I'll be doing my 45s here in a second on these, and then taking them back to the miter saw and finishing.
So it's time back at the table saw. So here, I had to change our setup from the 2-inch. I got this digital angle finder thingy I got off Amazon. I'll leave a link below where you can check it out. It's super cheap, super durable, works really good. So here you'll see me, I'm just tilt my blade. I set it to 0 on the reference face of the table saw. Then I'm going to tilt my blade until it gets 45 degrees. I actually use this on my miter saw too. It works really, really well to give you a real good accurate reading for where your blade and stuff is. So I'm going to get this set to 45, then I'll lock it down on my table saw. So that way we can get to ripping the 45s to make the corners nice and neat on the shelves. There's the 45. Perfect 45.0.
So at this point in the build, we got our tops the correct length, got our 45s ripped on each corner, got our sides. I just leave these long because I'm going to run them right back through the table saw anyway. And I'll reference off the front face, that way to make everything nice and even from top and bottom in case one of them's a little longer than the other.
So you are fixing to witness epic failure. So I run out of packing tape, and that's what I normally use on floating shelves, but I said, well, I got some blue painter's tape, so let's try that. Well, you'll see here in a little bit that this is not the way it should have went. This tape just does not have the stickiness or the strength to hold up. I've seen people use painter's tape, but I've had no luck with it whatsoever, and this right here is just, it is not the way it should have went. It was horrible. Very, very horrible. But I just keep on going for some reason instead of going to the store. So at this point in time, you're fixing to see me really get my butt whooped trying to flip this over with using painter's tape. No stopping, no nothing, just I keep going and going and going, and ends up falling apart. Let me do note, normally I run things through my joiner and planer, but this right here I didn't. This pine, I'm trying to make something out of nothing, and I probably shouldn't have. It probably would have went better if I would have made everything perfectly square, but it is not. It's just disastrous, and it just keeps happening over and over again. But let's push through. Finally, after fussing with it, getting it flipped over on its back, trying to reapply the tape and everything. So I'm using some just Top Bond 1 right here because I'm going to nail this off. It didn't come together like planned. Like I said before, I wish I'd run everything through my joiner and planer and got it all the same thickness, everything square, but you know, lumber prices are so high right now. I just bought what was cheapest because it's just going to be 3 floating shells in the end of the day. So here I'm just spreading the glue out evenly on the joints, just getting her pretty liberal in there because I will have to sand and all that and fill some holes and nail holes and putty and all that. And let me note on this, since these boards are just as wonky as they can be, wood putty is your best friend on this. Just note to self, it's your best friend because there were some gaps and stuff. But the thing about 45s though, you can roll the joints over with something hard like a chisel or that thing you sharpen your card scraper with if you have that, or even I've used a screwdriver before. But like I said, this just not turn out. It was not a great glue up at all. So I hope you learn from my mistakes if you're watching this video, because you can see the blue painter's tape did not even fold up. Then right here I'm just going to put some spacers in. Thought I was going to put that one in, but I didn't. But I found this other one that's right around roughly a little over a ½ inch thick. It spread them out a little bit, but it was horrible. So I had to grab some clamps to hold everything in place because it was just wanting to fall apart left and right. The actual first one I done actually went very well. This one right here just fought me to the end, to the very end. But, you know, as a woodworker, you just keep on going and try to find clamps and nails and screws, whatever you got, and just keep putting her together and just keep going. Because especially when you know you got a ton of wood putty and clamps on your side. And plus, I'm using this Top Bond 1, so I ain't got too much time to get everything put together. You can't fuss around a whole lot with this because it starts drying pretty quick. I could have used Top Bond 2 or 3, but me not paying attention and being in a hurry because I was wanting to get these knocked out in a day. It ended up taking me like 2 days to do it, but that's because I work too. So, but anyway, you can see there, it just fell straight apart after the glue. Tape come off, just horrible. But pay attention to what you're doing, Dusty. Pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention. Pop a nail in her. Finally, with all that fussing going on with these boards, these wanky boards, very miters are not being tight. Got a bow and a cup in one of them. Finally get to put a nail in, trying to hold some stuff, so I'm having to utilize my clamps a lot. Like I said previously, the first one I built is actually sitting behind this one. I had it together in like 2 minutes. It was no problem. I probably didn't even use 6 nails in the whole thing. But this one right here just was disastrous from the get-go. So I'm going to call it a successful build, but it was not an easy build. I hope when I get ready to put the hardware in and hang them, I hope it does not go this way. But like I said, you live, you learn, you keep going. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Just not using a planer and a joiner and not using the proper tape made this horrible. But we'll see if it comes together all in the end. And I am using finished nails on this. my compressor is very loud. I didn't want to listen to it while I'm trying to pop brad nails in, so I just popped some 1.5 inch.
So at the end of the day, after the glue up, I did fill all these with putty, all the nail holes, and I had some gaps here and there. At the end of the day, this is what you end up with. This is a floating shelf. It's hollow in the back for your rods or whatever kind of bracket you want to use, which is about a 1/2 inch thick. I know there's a million ways out there to do floating shelves, but this is the way I do them. It gives you the mimic of a 2-inch thick, and you can actually make this more rustic if you want to. You could beat it to death, sand it more, all that. I didn't take you through my sanding process because I know sanding is boring, but like I said, this is simple. I batched out 3 of them pretty quick in a day, so I'll put some finish on this and all that. So this is my floating shelf. So in my next video, I will show you how I set my sprayer up. And I'm gonna spray this with either water-based polyurethane, or I may spray it in lacquer. Really don't know yet, but I will show you how I finish these. And sometimes I use walrus oil, but in the end of the day, make it your own. You can do this with simple tools, with a regular skill saw, straight edge, tilted on 45. You could have just used butt joints if you wanted to, but it's just a simple build for simple shelves. And like I said previous, you can do this in a day. And like I said, I batched out 3 of them very quick. I said on my next video, I'll show you how I spray it, how I mix my spray and all that, and show you the simple tricks to that I use that work pretty good in my shop. It's easy, it's quick, and it's cheap because I got a very cheap setup. And then I'll do another video on installing these and showing you how I install them and stuff like that. So like I said, at the end of the day, make it your own. Do what tools you have, what tools you use. Just very cheap, inexpensive floating shelves. You don't have to buy the ones from Lowe's or Home Depot or Amazon. You can actually build these yourself pretty cheap and make it your own. So thanks for watching.